transfer of Zulfikar, will that be a game changer for you?
Again, I'm going to let our Ukrainian partners speak to the battlefield specifically, but again, we will do everything we can to continue to surge our unprecedented security assistance to our Ukrainian partners.
Thanks so
Just
much.
one tiny thing when you were saying, does the US have independent assessments and confirmation that the drones in today's attack on Kiev were indeed Iranian drones?
I can't speak to these specific reports, but again, as I said at the beginning of your question, we've been warning about this since dating back to July, not just about their use, but of Iran's plan to sell UAVs to Russia in the first place.
Just one quick follow-up on that.
Sure.
I'm wondering if, in addition to the hundreds of drones that you just referenced, if the US believes that Iran is preparing to send additional weaponry, specifically short-range ballistic missiles from Iran to Russia.
Again, I've seen those reports, but I don't have anything to offer on that. What I would say though is that this continued action of Iran and Russia closening their relationship is a reminder of candidly how the Russian military is suffering from major supply shortages in Ukraine, in large part because of the sanctions and export controls that are being enforced by the United States and its allies. As I think the Treasury Department noted last week, Russia has lost over 6,000 pieces of equipment since the start of this war, and there is enormous pressure on its defense industry to replace those losses. Russia is being forced, frankly, to resort on unreliable countries like Iran for supplies and equipment. And our information has noted that some of these UAVs that had been noted in these transfers have been experiencing some numerous failures. So again, this is going to be something that we pay very close attention to and will take appropriate action as needed.
Just one quick follow-up on that. As we talk about other countries selling or giving weaponry to Russia, do you guys have any updates as to where the North Korea-Russia relationship stands on that point, on that aspect? I think it was last month.
Yeah.
U.S. officials said that.
I believe Janie asked about this about a week and a half ago, and I don't think we have anything
No
additional to
update
offer on that. Yeah.
Hold
on. John. I'm gonna go with John.
Sure. Can I just ask something else on Iran?
Okay.
On Avian prison.
Sure.
The situation there. First, do you have information about the Americans who are there, including Siyam al-Namazi? And do you have any? Does the United States have any information about what actually happened? In Iran, it's said to have been a fire, but obviously there's some skepticism.
So I don't have any updates to offer on what transpired, but what I can say is that the detained U.S. citizens in Iran are accounted for and they are safe. We are closely monitoring their situation for privacy and security and their safety. I'm not going to discuss the situation further, but we're going to continue to work with other countries, many of whom also have detained citizens at even, to remind Iran of its responsibility for the safety of our detained citizens. And we reiterate our call for the immediate release of all wrongfully detained U.S. citizens.
When you say they're safe, they're still in Iranian custody, right?
Correct. They are safe from the fire and the events taking place at Even prison. But yes, they are still wrongfully detained and they are still in Iranian custody.
Changing topics?
Sure.
Okay. It's been reported that this administration is quite furious with the Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas for saying what he said to President Putin about not trusting the United States or not trusting the Biden administration. I wonder, you've seen the reports first. I was thinking, what are your comments on this?
I have seen those reports, and I think you've seen some of my colleagues from the White House speak to this as well. But Russia's war of aggression in Ukraine is a clear violation of international law, and it serves as a threat to global peace and security. And President Putin is a far cry from the type of international partner or international leader needed to constructively address the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. And so I would reiterate that we are deeply disappointed to hear President Abbas's remarks to President Putin. Russia does not stand for justice and international law, as was evidenced by the UN General Assembly vote last week. And President Biden and Secretary Blinken, in contrast, have demonstrated a U.S. commitment for decades to seeking creative solutions and working towards a lasting peace in the region that's required to advance stability and prosperity throughout the region.
Now, will this disappointment be translated into action, like, holding back maybe on the reopening of the consulate in Jerusalem or the reopening of the PLO office here in Washington in terms of tangible, punishment of
I don't have
Palestinian?
I don't have any actions to preview or link it to, but I would just again reiterate our disappointment to hear those remarks in reference to.
Just one more. There's been an increase in sector aggression against the Palestinians, and sometimes aided by Israeli soldiers, especially now that they have the olive harvest, and it's the only crop that Palestinians depend on annually. And obviously, the settlers are attacking farmers, uprooting trees, burning them, and so on. Sometimes, while the Israeli soldiers look on, and sometimes even joining. I wonder if you have any, if you have seen reports about increased settler violence, and second, if you have a comment on it.
Well, Saeed, I spoke a little bit about this last week. The recent period has seen a sharp and alarming increase in Palestinian and Israeli deaths, including impacting a number of children. Since mid-September, at least 23 Palestinians and 4 Israelis have been killed, and it is vital that these parties themselves take urgent action to prevent greater loss of life. And we continue to emphasize the point that Israelis and Palestinians deserve to have equal measures of security, stability, of justice, and dignity and democracy. Jenny, go ahead.
Thank you. I have 2 questions. One North Korea, one China. North Korea's a series of provocations last week, and North Korea violated the September 19 military agreement that South Korea and North Korea has agreed to 5 years ago. South Korea is considering whether to abolish the 1919 military agreement first or keep it as it is. How does the United States view North Korea's violation of military agreement?
Well, Jenny, you saw me speak to this quite clearly last week, that the recent ballistic missile launches, the other kinds of aggravation and provocation that we're seeing are condemnable. And the specific ballistic missile launches are in clear violation of multiple UN Security Council resolutions. And beyond the violation of resolutions, these kinds of activities, they pose a very serious threat to the region and to the world more broadly. And so what the United States is going to continue to do is we're going to continue to stay engaged with our allies, the Republic of Korea and Japan. We're going to continue to have diplomatic engagements with them and take appropriate actions as necessary.
One more, China. Chinese President Xi Jinping said he would unify Taiwan by force within a few years. And also Xi Jinping sent a letter to Kim Jong-un for strategic unity between China and North Korea. Do you think this could cause Kim Jong-un to make a misjudgment?
It's not for me to speak what's in Kim Jong-un's head or not, but what I can say to the first part of your question is we have been quite clear, both publicly and privately with the PRC, that our policy towards Taiwan has remained consistent for decades and across administrations. And we remain committed to our One China policy, which is guided by the Taiwan Relations Act, the 3 joint communiques, and the 6 assurances. And we're going to continue to take steps to promote cross-strait peace. And look, as it relates to the DPRK, I think you saw last week when there was a UN Security Council hearing on this, you saw the PRC and Russia and other countries parrot this false claim that U.S. provocations were the origination of these ballistic missile launches or anything like that. That's baloney and absolutely not the case.
On Iran,
Follow up in China.
Okay, yeah. Can we stay in the region and then I'll work the room a little bit. Sorry about that.
Yes,
Go ahead.
Thank you. The president stated, China will never promise to renounce the use of force and we reserve the option of taking all measures necessary. And also the US military officials have said that China wants to have the capability to invade Taiwan by 2027. So considering these circumstances, does the State Department feel a need to speed up delivery of weapons to Taiwan? And if so, what could be the option for United States government to speed up weapons production and also delivery of those weapons to Taiwan?
I'm not going to speculate or preview any kind of arms transfer, but what I would say is that we would find any unilateral change to the status quo from either side deeply troubling. As we have said previously, our one China policy has not changed. It is guided by the Taiwan Relations Act, the 3 joint communiques, and the 6 assurances. We expect that cross-strait differences to be resolved peacefully, but I'm not going to preview or hypothesize anything beyond that. Anything else on the region before we move away?
Just a quick follow-up.
Sure.
So, the U.S. government already promised to, sell some, the weapons to Taiwan, but some of the deliveries not made yet. So just I would like to ask that so how U.S. can speed up weapon productions and also to the delivery of those weapons already promised to Taiwan.
Right, and I just don't have anything to offer on the delivery or the sequencing and how that happens, but we can see if we have anything more. Anything else on the region before we move away? I'm gonna go to, and then I'll come back to you, Sean, I promise.
So-
In the back.
2 quick questions on Iran and then one on Syria, I'm sorry. But on Iran, you said the US citizens are accounted for in Evin prison incident. Does that include do you have on US permanent residents? That's one. And then second, Iran has reportedly amassed troops on the border towns on Iraqi Kurdistan's border towns, threatening a ground offensive into Iraqi Kurdistan. Do you have anything on that?
On the first question, I don't have anything to offer beyond that. The American citizens that were at Evin prison are accounted for and not in further harm's way, as Matt said. And on your next question, I will have to check and see if we have anything for you on that. I don't have anything to offer from here.
And then on Syria, I'm sorry, but a few years ago, Turkey took Afrin out of the hand of the SDF, your partners. And just past week, Tahrir al-Sham, an offshoot of Al-Qaeda or closely linked to Al-Qaeda, took over Afrin. Do you have anything on that?
I don't, but I can see if we have anything for you on that there. Sean, go ahead.
Could I ask, changing topics about Ethiopia?
Sure.
The government in Ethiopia said it's going to continue its offensive in the security region. UN Secretary General Guterres a few hours ago was saying that Ethiopia is now spiraling out of control. Does the US have an assessment? Is Special Envoy Hammer involved in any efforts now? How do you see things?
Yeah, sure. So a couple things. First, Special Envoy Hammer continues to be in the region. He is in Addis. He met with members of the government over the weekend and over the past couple of days. We also, throughout this, have welcomed the AU calls for a ceasefire. And we continue to be deeply concerned over the reports of increasing violence, the loss of life, the indiscriminate targeting of civilians, and the destruction in the conflict in northern Ethiopia. And we again reiterate our calls, and you saw the secretary speak to this a little. We call on the Ethiopian National Defense Forces and the Eritrean Defense Forces to immediately halt their joint military offensive. And for Eritrea to withdraw its forces from northern Ethiopia. And we further call on the Tigrayan Defense Forces to cease any additional provocations at this time. It's incumbent on all of those involved to respect and protect civilians, and we call on them to allow unhindered humanitarian access to all Ethiopians in need.
In the interest of time, could I go into something else?
Sure, of course.
Pakistan.
Yes.
Pakistan said that it summoned the U.S. ambassador. This was, of course, after the remarks by President Biden talking of dangers from the nuclear program. I know you probably don't want to speak for the president from this podium, but could you say what is said to Pakistan in response to its concerns that it voiced?
Sure, Sean. So, look, the U.S. has always viewed a secure and prosperous Pakistan as critical to U.S. interests, and more broadly, the U.S. Values our longstanding cooperation with Pakistan. We enjoy a strong partnership. As you know, the foreign minister was in town and had a bilateral meeting with the secretary not too long ago. Councillor Derek Jolet had the opportunity to visit Karachi and Islamabad not too long ago, I think on the tail end of the summer, as did USAID Administrator Sam Power. So this is a relationship we view as important, and it's something that we're going to continue to remain deeply engaged on. And as it relates to the ambassador, we regularly meet with officials at the foreign ministry, but I don't have anything specific to read out.
Just was there any message specifically on the nuclear issue, if the U.S. does consider dangers, as the president said?
Again, I don't have any specific conversation to read out, but the United States is confident of Pakistan's commitment and its ability to secure its nuclear assets. Alex, I'm going to work the room a little bit. I've called on you a bunch in the back.
Yeah, kind of a two-part question on the situation with the Saudis and OPEC.
Sure.
First, there were reports last week, obviously, that the administration asked them to delay that cut by a month. Ned said last week that he couldn't confirm that report, but the Saudis came out and confirmed it themselves in an official statement. So I guess first question is, can you guys still not confirm or deny that report? Are we to take the Saudis' word for it since they said that the 1 month cut was asked for? And then secondly, is there any update on how you guys are reassessing or changing the relationship with the Saudis today? Because they're seemingly already reacting. They disinvited a Biden official to an event today. They're seemingly already moving to adjust the relationship themselves. Have you guys made any progress on that front you can share?
Sure. So as it relates to a specific meeting, I don't have anything, or sorry, a specific request for any kind of delay. I don't have anything to offer on that. But I think what's important here is that over the course of this administration, as it relates to the conversation around energy, we have been quite clear at every corner that supply should meet demand. As this country, as our economy, and as economies around the world continue to come out of the COVID-19 pandemic and the impacts that the pandemic had on our economy and economies around the world, that the demand for energy should be met by appropriate supply. And so in recent weeks, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia conveyed to us privately and publicly that they had an intention to reduce oil production, which not only would impact supply, but it would also increase Russian revenues and blunt the effectiveness of the sanctions that this country and our allies and partners have been in placing on Russia. That would be the wrong decision to make. And so we presented that analysis, and we presented that there was no market basis to cut production targets, and that they could easily wait and see how the energy market developed over the coming months before taking this step. And then so their decision to cut production was short-sighted for a number of reasons. But specifically on the relationship, this is not something new. The president has talked about reevaluating the relationship with Saudi Arabia since the early days of this administration. He talked about it as a candidate, and this is a relationship that it's a bilateral one that has been built over decades on a bipartisan basis that has transcended multiple administrations of multiple presidents of multiple parties. So what this administration is going to do is we're going to act methodically, we're going to act strategically, and we're going to take time to consult with members of Congress, with our allies and partners. Because as I have said, and as Ned and the Secretary have said previously, we have a multiplicity of interests with the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. A security interest, an energy interest, a trade interest, a number of these factors.
Can I go back to Iran just for a second?
Sure.
And the drones and reports of missile sales?
Sure.
Is it the administration's opinion that either Russia or Iran is in violation of any kind of, international law or international restriction
We do, Matt.
You do.
We do. So, as I think you probably saw earlier today, our French and British allies publicly offered the assessment that Iran's supply of these UAVs to Russia is a violation of UN Security Council Resolution 2231, and this is something that we agree with.
Hold on a second. The arms embargo on Iran expired.
So not all of it expired, and under the UN Security Council Resolution 2231, restrictions on the certain transfer of certain weapons remain in force, and these restrictions are in addition to those weapons that were restricted under the conventional arms embargo. And it is our belief that these UAVs that were transferred from Iran to Russia and used by Russia in Ukraine are among the weapons that would remain embargoed under 2231.
Okay, that's interesting because you just said that now you're confirming that these were Iranian drones, because in a response to a question earlier, you said that we saw reports, but
I just
now you're
didn't
saying
wanna
that they have
speak-
definitely been, now you're saying that these are, that you guys know that these are definitely Iranian.
I didn't want to speak to specific reports,
And-
but to answer your question, the UAVs that were part of the transfer are in violation of 2231.
So, but they are conventional weapons, are they not?
Our belief and our understanding is that these types of UAVs would also be restricted under.
But what kind of type is that?
I'm not
So they
gonna-
could, so in other words, you're saying that the Iranians could sell the Russians AK-47s or the Iranian version of an AK-47 if they wanted to, and that would be okay? But
I'm not
for
gonna
some
get into
reason-
hypotheticals, Matt.
Well, I'm not asking for a hypothetical, I just wanna know why you think that these drones are covered by a resolution, by an arms embargo that expired, and that when the previous administration tried to snap back the sanctions so that it wouldn't expire, you guys removed that in February of last year. And so that embargo remains expired, and so I just wanna know what is it about these drones that makes you think that they are still covered by arms sales restrictions?
I can see if we can get you a technical analysis or an explanation, but our assessment is that they are covered by the remaining pieces of 2231. But I will see if we can get a specific explainer on why this specific technology
Vedant,
is.
on this point, on the
Sorry.
drone, is it your assessment that Iran, a third world country, has such advanced drones that they can give Russia, that has had a whole history, 100-year history of rocketry and so on and all these things, to impact the battle on the ground, to actually change, to be a game changer in this war?
Well, I think we would have concerns with with a country like Iran closening their alliance with Russia over the course of this conflict, a country that is known to partake in destabilizing actions, not just in its region, but also around the world. So we certainly would deeply be troubled by that. And as I spoke to that at the top of this briefing, everybody, I'm gonna wrap here so you all have time to catch the Secretary for his engagement with Secretary Rice. So thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks.